have this whole thing in the middle of the book. I actually kind of stopped believing in joy. And then over the course of 2 weeks, joy kept showing up. That was such an important lesson because it taught me that we actually can give up hope, and the joy is going to be there anyway. Like joy and hope don't need us to believe in them for them to exist. You know what I mean? And I think sometimes there's like a little bit of a shame thread in this idea that like, don't give up hope. You can't give up hope. Like sometimes you do. And sometimes the darkness feels too dark. And that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. I think there are moments in our lives where our job is just to hold on. Then the joy will come find us, frankly, whether we want it to or not.
Welcome to Normalize the Conversation. I'm your host, Francesca Regeter. Today, I'm joined by Dr. M.C. McDonald, a research professor, author, and life coach who has spent over a decade exploring the neuroscience, psychology, and lived experience of trauma, with a mission to reframe how we understand, heal from, and destigmatize it. Joy can feel distant when life gets heavy, but it's still there waiting to be found. Dr. McDonald opens up about how we can invite joy back into our lives, even through pain and trauma. Together, we explore simple ways to notice moments of light and softness, to gently make space for happiness without guilt or fear. Step into a conversation that will remind you that even in the heaviest seasons, light can still find its way in. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am very excited for our conversation, but before we begin, I want to check in. How are you really?
It's been a hard year, you know? I think that everyone can relate to that, both in terms of sort of what's going on globally, and then also all of our individual stuff continues on while there are those additional stressors. But that being said, it's kind of been a crash course in like taking my own medicine. So I just wrote this book about how important joy is, especially when things are really dark. And so I've had to practice it, and I'm really grateful for that because I see directly what I already knew, but I see even more just how grounding it is to practice joy every day.
Yeah, okay, I totally relate to that. I've been working so
Yeah.
hard to try to find like pockets of joy in my life because
Hmm.
the world right now feels very dark and my brain is often very, very dark. And
Yep.
when that happens, it's so hard to find any piece of joy or believe that joy even exists. So without trying
Yep.
to find those little pockets of
Yep.
happiness, life feels overwhelming.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important to understand that because I think this is really destigmatizing the this is not just true like emotionally, it's true neurobiologically. So there are a number of systems we can point to in the brain that make it so that we automatically imprint all the negative stuff. This is to our evolutionary advantage. It's something that keeps us safe. But I think we don't realize how much control we actually do have over what's going on in there. And if we do, I have this practice called tiny little joys, which sounds like exactly what you were just talking about, where you kind of look for these little pockets of joy and really intentionally imprint them every single day, once a day, a couple times a day. And by doing that, you're both sort of giving your nervous system a break in the moment, but also you're teaching your brain to look for the good stuff, which is always there, right? It doesn't negate the bad stuff that's going on, but I think we can get stuck in a really dark spiral when we forget to see what else is out there.
Yes, absolutely. And it's there, like you said, there are always moments of joy. And
Yeah.
it doesn't, it may feel like a bad day, but there are still
Mhm.
good moments, and being able to find them has really
Mhm.
made such a difference for me. I started at the beginning of this year a happiness jar. And every
Mm.
day before bed, I have to write down between 1 and 3 things that made me smile
I
that
love
day.
that. Oh, I love that.
Some days it's just that my dog like kissed my nose, and that's
Yep.
totally fine. Learning that I
Yep.
had really hit that depressive spiral at the beginning of the year, and
Yeah.
that's been something that's helped keep me going in those moments where that depression could easily overtake and overconsume me.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we get, one of the sort of misconceptions about joy is that it needs to be equal in size to the bad things in order to be important or relevant. And that's, as you just said, that's totally not true. I like to think of joy as an anchor. And if you think of like an actual physical anchor, in comparison to the sea and to the big giant boat, it's really tiny, but the anchor still does hold the boat in this wide sea. And I think that joy, if we think about joy that way, it can be an anchor for us and help us navigate the darkness with a little bit more resource.
Yeah, it really makes a difference in navigating the darkness. And
Mm.
the darkness is always going to come. We can't
Mhm.
control
Yep.
anything, honestly.
Yep.
Just
Yep.
learning that when it comes, there's still hope. We can
Hmm.
still let it in. Just really, no other words, and like changes our perspective, the way we approach
Hmm.
life, and those moments of joy and happiness.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that like the darkness is always there and we know that. And I think what we need to welcome in and learn to see is that the light is always there too, even in the darkest darks. And so if we can train ourselves to see that, um, I have this whole thing in the middle of the book. I actually kind of stopped believing in joy because of a couple things that were going on. And I really seriously considered like giving the advance back and being like, we have to cancel this project. I can't write a book about something I don't believe in and like in good faith, like get it out there and market it. And then I was sitting with that idea and like over the course of 2 weeks, joy kept showing up. And I think that was such an important lesson because it taught me that we actually can give up hope and the joy is going to be there anyway. Like joy and hope don't need us to believe in them for them to exist. You know what I mean? And I think sometimes there's like a little bit of a shame thread in this idea that like, don't give up hope. You can't give up hope. Like sometimes you do. And sometimes the darkness is feels too dark, and that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. I think there are moments in our lives where our job is just to hold on. And
And
if we can do that, then the joy will come find us, frankly, whether we want it to or not.
there's this misconception that you have to be like happy all the time and life
Hmm.
to be full of joy. And then when that hope feels depleted, when it feels like there's no joy in sight, we think, oh, something's wrong with us, and I'm the
Yeah.
only one feeling this way. And it brings a lot of shame and isolation, which
Hmm.
makes it just so much harder.
Yeah, totally. And I think like it gives us the idea that it gives us this like kind of isolating feeling because we feel like everyone else is capable of it. Let me look on Instagram, everyone else is doing it and I can't, you know? Yeah, right.
Yeah, me all the time.
Yeah.
And it's so hard when you start comparing yourself then,
Oh my
right?
gosh.
When you
Yeah.
see people smiling and having these really nice things and
Yeah.
exciting moments, and then you're
Right.
like, why doesn't my life look like that? Why don't I feel that way? And a lot
Right.
of times we're honestly all going through it and we only
Mhm.
see the highlight reel. And it's so important that we create these conversations around the fact that people only show you what they want you to see.
Yeah, totally. I think that's also kind of one of the tiny mercies of this era that we're living in right now, which is so dark and terrifying. We can't get around the fact that we are in the darkness. And I think that like helps like a tiny little bit because I think we know a little bit more confidently that while we're looking at someone's highlight reel, that there is stuff going on in the background that's not all sunshine and light, you know?
Yeah, and in the age of more mental health content being put out
Mhm.
there,
Yeah.
it's really made such a difference. And learning that I can control who I follow. Don't know why that
Yes.
took so long to learn, right?
Yes, 100%. Yes. And I forget. I continue to forget, and then I re-remember, and I'm like, wait a second, I don't actually have to. I'm in charge of what I am consuming. Shockingly.
Right? It's
Yeah.
so easy to forget. And a lot of times I'd feel this obligation to follow someone back, and then I'd feel so guilty to unfollow.
Hmm.
But I noticed how drained I felt and how
Hmm.
insecure I was starting to
Hmm.
feel. And is that person having one more follower worth the impact on
Right.
mental health? And that was a tough
Right.
decision to learn.
Yeah, I think that's so fascinating. I've been talking about this a lot recently. We we have not had a larger like societal conversation about like rules and like I don't know the word etiquette for our new technological age because I think I have conversations with clients a lot of the time about this pressure, these unspoken expectations that other people have now that we are available via 15 different platforms 24/7, and it gets in the way of our mental health. It gets in the way of our relationships flourishing. And I think like it's interesting that it's such a shared experience, but we haven't had that societal conversation because it used to be that you could step away from your social sphere and
Yeah.
get a break, and now you can't.
Yeah, especially when you use it for work, right?
Yes.
To
Yeah.
connect with people, and especially in an age where we've now made friends who are all over the world. We've built these
Right.
connections. The only way to continue those connections is to be online. So being
Yeah.
able to have some kind of digital guidelines
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
figuring out that intention that I want, and my intention might be different than yours or someone else's.
Right.
Doesn't mean it's wrong. We have to find the approach that works for us.
Yep, totally. And we need to start having those conversations where like if you and I are friends and you're someone who responds immediately to text messages and I am not, how are we going to navigate that? We need to give kids tools to understand how to navigate their relationships because they're growing up in the digital age and they don't have those, or maybe they're having those conversations already and we're just not because we're older. I don't know,
Yeah, it's
but it's a stressor. It's for sure a stressor.
learning how to communicate it too. Like, this is my
Yep.
communication style.
Right.
And if I'm not responsive right away, it has nothing to do with you. For me, I'm
Right.
super, super responsive. Almost immediately. It's pretty annoying to most people. They're like, Jessica, I haven't even put my phone down yet. But I love it.
Yeah, I love that.
Down
That's
a little
funny.
more.
Right.
My thing I need to work on. But when other people don't, I've had to learn to even vocalize, like, sometimes my brain makes me think everyone hates me.
Yeah,
And
yes.
that reassurance that no, I just am not on my phone 24/7. I am working. I have clients that I'm
Mhm.
seeing maybe hours, 8-hour gaps where I just don't see it. And it's nothing to do with you. When I see it, I will
Yeah.
respond. That's been so helpful for me. Or when I call
Yeah.
my friends and they don't answer, I recently moved across the country, and not having my same friends around me has been very difficult. And learning that conversation that our time zones don't line up
Yeah.
and our schedules are very, very different. So
Right.
knowing if I don't answer, it's nothing to do with you. It's just that I really wasn't available, and I will reconnect with you at some,
Yeah.
at least once a week.
Right. And I still love you. And this is maybe I'm going to be showing you that in a different way, like spending an hour on the phone with you when we do connect, or sending you memes or gifts, or like little, like things that make me think of you. I think sometimes we miss because we have these expectations. Again, that's a lot of people don't even know that they have the expectation. They just come in and they say like I used to be able to have friendships and now everybody hates me. And it's like, well, hold on, what is giving you that story? You said it so well a second ago, like my brain is telling me a story that everybody hates me. Where is that story coming from? Is it rooted in reality? How can I navigate that?
Exactly. What is the evidence? And not being
Right.
afraid to talk to someone about how you feel, because
Mhm.
there may be times they feel that way too. I have this one new friend, and I was like, I always think you hate me. And she was like, what?
Mm,
And I was like, sometimes your tone of voice, and it's your natural tone, but your tone
right.
of voice I may perceive differently,
Right.
or not responding for a day or 24 hours. And she was like, my phone's on do not disturb at all times. So I really don't see my notifications. They're off. And
Hmm.
I will try to like notice if my tone seems kind of harsh and tell you
Hmm.
like that's not the intention of my message. And that's
Right.
super helpful. And she shared with me what sometimes creates insecurities for her. And we've learned to develop
Hmm.
boundaries and also this form
Hmm.
of communication that just helps set us up for a healthy relationship instead of constantly
Yeah.
getting in our heads.
Yeah. 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 I love that.
It happens on both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. Hmm.
And then another thing I've had to learn to do is being online is a big thing for me and the insecurities it creates. And prior to moving out to California, I was living in Florida, flying across the country every few days and taking care of my grandmother when I was in Florida. She has Alzheimer's. So it seemed like everyone else had in their 20s or having these joyful moments where they're going out with their friends and they're experiencing all these new things. They're not
Hmm.
jet lagged, having these breakdowns once a week and feeling terrified at all moments that something's going to happen,
Hmm.
that they're going to mess up.
Yeah. Right.
And I had to learn how I can create some kind of laughter through all of it.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
for me, that looked like taking my grandma out dancing, her and her best
Oh,
friend,
I love that.
right? Or like having dance parties at night before bed, finding things that we both enjoy, having activity nights, and inviting my friends over too. So, how can we
Hmm.
merge our lives to feel a sense of laughter instead of really letting that darkness fuel me and then seeing other people live their 20s so differently and think something's wrong with me? I'm never going to find joy in life.
Yep. Oh man, I relate to that so much. So I wrote a book in 2023 called Unbroken: The Trauma Response Is Never Wrong, and I mean, it's about trauma in general, but I also sort of tell a little bit of my story, which is that both of my parents died when I was in my early 20s. And so similarly, like I was living in Manhattan, all of my friends in their 20s and 30s and 40s, to be honest, like were living a very free, not a life without stressors. Obviously, everyone has stressors, but it felt to me like they had more access to joy than I did because I was trying to battle all this grief, right? Which grief is not meant to be battled, but I didn't know that at the time. And it was, I think, really life-changing to figure out, okay, how am I going to orient myself in the world? How am I going to find joy? And I think that helped me see joy as a really profound healing tool. I think another misconception when it comes to joy is that it's this like flimsy, like weak thing that like is only for you when you're doing well and nothing bad is happening. And as you mentioned, like when you are caretaking somebody who has Alzheimer's, you can still have joy, which doesn't negate the fact that that is a terrifying and awful situation to be in. But I think it does fuel you so that you can, so that it can be sustainable, so you can survive it, you know?
Exactly. You don't have to earn joy. And it's not something that
Yeah.
always naturally just happens. Sometimes
Right.
you have to create those moments for it. And that
Hmm.
was
Hmm.
a big thing with my grandmother. And people would be like, how are you laughing during
Hmm.
this time? Like, shouldn't you feel more drained and upset? And I'm like, I absolutely feel drained and upset.
Yeah.
You don't see what's happening behind closed doors, but the
Right.
only way that I can get through it is to create moments of joy and
Yep.
her experience with it so that
Hmm.
she would find moments where she can laugh too. Because, especially in
Right.
the beginning, when she's noticing these memory gaps, when she's noticing her balance changing, noticing that she accidentally put aluminum foil in the microwave and caused a spark, she's
Right.
starting to notice these changes. That's terrifying for her.
Yeah.
So, if I'm reacting, I'm
Right.
living in this gloom and she's scared and she's feeling depressed. Neither one of us are having an experience that could be so
Mm.
beautiful, being that caretaker
Right.
together, not feeling isolated, either one of us in it. So if we can create these moments of joy and be so intentional with it, it
Yeah.
really can create this form of connection instead of isolation, whether it's connection to yourself, the world around you, or someone else, instead of
Yeah.
just feeling isolated in all of it.
Right. And I think like we also forget, I think because we live in such an individualistic society, we forget that like it's not just about our nervous systems, we co-regulate all the time. So anyone you are in a space with, you are amplifying each other's whatever, right? That could be fear, that could be anxiety, that could be grief, that could be joy. And so I think like when you're able to tap into joy, you are healing the collective nervous system of whatever that space is, but also you are healing your nervous system. You're giving your grandmother and yourself a break, which then has a physiological response. Like the stress hormones in your body actually reduce. And that is really important for your health. It's important for her health. It's important for longevity and also just like fatigue, you know?
Exactly. And it's something that took a very long time to learn. I'm really curious, what moment or moments kind of led to you figuring out I need to incorporate joy? I need to be intentional with it.
Yeah. I mean, the question is sort of like I could answer that in two ways, like one for my personal life and one for my practice. So I work one-on-one with folks who are dealing with trauma, and I have been doing that for about 15 years. And so in my own life, I think I realized I needed to kind of find and squirrel away joy when I was a kid, just because of the house that I grew up in and kind of some of the dynamics that were going on in my family. Um, I think I realized, obviously in an unconscious way, that if I was going to like make it, I needed to find little pockets of joy to sustain me, even if they were secret, you know? And so I had a best friend who I still have, which I'm so grateful for, who I met in the first grade. And we would, when stuff was going on, I would call her on the phone and we would make a happy list. And we would just make a list as long as we possibly could that had all the things that made us happy. And it was like usually really tiny, silly things like M&Ms and fleece blankets and getting to hang out together and Starbucks coffee, which had like just opened in our town, like all of these things. And it was like, okay, I can keep going if I can have this happy list. And that sustained both of us, I think, through all sorts of hard times in our teens and 20s and things like that. And then, so I think I kind of established that thread in my personal life really young, but it was kind of unconscious. And then when I was working with clients who are dealing with trauma, in 2020, I started to feel really like under-resourced, because my clients were all like globally dealing with so much at the same time, and there seems to be no end in sight for any of it. I didn't feel like my typical tools for understanding and coping with trauma were enough. And so that's when I kind of reached for the lens of positive psychology because I thought, okay, there's tons of research there has been for decades, but now that the neuroscience is coming out, we can actually see that gratitude and hope and imagination and joy have a positive impact on your mental well-being and your nervous system. And that's really compelling. And so if I can package that to clients, maybe we can spend at least some of the time tapping into something other than trauma to help us continue on. Um, and that's when I developed the practice Tiny Little Joys, which I started using with groups and with individuals, and it was working really well. And I thought, like, oh, this is a great little tool to add on to all the other stuff that we have to kind of cope with trauma. And then I noticed that a lot of the people that I was working with were really resistant to joy. And the tools that were developed in positive psychology were not made for that resistance. And so that's when I really was like, okay, we've got to rethink how we deploy these concepts if you're someone who's dealing with trauma, because telling someone who is deeply suicidal to make a gratitude list can strike the wrong way, right? Like I don't see the future. I can't imagine anything for myself. I'm actually not grateful for anything, and now I feel like I'm worse because I'm broken because everyone else can make a gratitude list and I can't. And now what does that mean? I'm not, you know, I have no gratitude. Like it's just it spiraled. And so that's kind of what started this project of the Joy Reset, which is a bunch of like tools specifically for folks who are resistant to joy or who feel um, like it's not for them, or they can't let it in.
I love that. First of all, going back to the happiness list,
Yeah.
that's amazing. And to
I
have
know, right?
friends to do
I
that
know.
with, it just goes to show that power of community and
Yeah.
reaching out and doing things together because you're really not alone in it. And it's
Yeah.
okay to have someone else that you do things with that help
Yeah.
create that tool to keep you going. So love that. And then on
All right.
the other side,
Yeah.
as I call myself like a baby therapist that just graduated, so
Yeah.
now starting to see clients a little bit more. And
Yeah.
that's so important.
Hmm.
And that's something that I need to start incorporating more with my clients because I've noticed a lot of times it is when I ask them, like, what's one thing that brings you happiness? And they say nothing. I often don't even know how to respond. And I'm trying
Hmm.
to like frame it a bit for them.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It can be so difficult when you really can't see
Yeah.
a moment of light or brevity where you can't see
Yeah.
something that can possibly feel good.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I know for me, that was a big thing too, coming out of the psych unit following multiple attempts. I was like
Hmm.
trying to write three things I was grateful for every day. And I was like, I'm not grateful. I don't want to be
Yeah.
here. How am I
Right.
to find something that like makes me
Right.
feel grateful to be here? And
Right. Right.
I had to learn that that practice, it works better now. And I really appreciate it
Mhm.
now. But back
Mhm.
then wasn't right. And it didn't mean that I didn't
Mhm.
deserve to be here. It didn't mean
Yeah.
that something was wrong with me and I couldn't be quote unquote fixed.
Yeah.
I just had to find small tools that made sense for where I was right now in that moment.
Yeah, but that is so, so important because I don't think that gets talked about enough in psychological training or in mental health fields at all. Is that like we can prove, right, quote unquote, prove that something is helpful. That does not mean that that's going to be the tool for every person at every moment. Like there's a lot of research that shows that meditation is incredibly beneficial, except if you are dealing with PTSD or an anxiety disorder that is not controlled at that moment, in which case meditation can actually amplify your symptoms. And I think like a lot of people get told to meditate at the wrong moment. And this is people are like well-meaning. It's not like they're trying to shame them, but what ends up happening is that they feel like, oh, I'm just bad at another, here's another thing I'm bad at. And then they give up on meditation forever. And they don't have a tool for that moment that they're in. And so I think like it's so, so critical that we teach people to meet their clients where they are and take that seriously. And say, okay, so you're dealing with suicidality. You might not be in a space for gratitude. Okay, that's fine. We'll maybe we'll deploy that tool later. What do we have right now? That might be helpful.
Exactly. And that was another big thing for me is everyone's like, meditate, take 5 to 10 minutes and meditate every day. I couldn't be quiet, like be in silence for 5 to 10 minutes. I
Yeah,
couldn't last 30 seconds. I would
yeah,
just go straight down to, I hate myself. I don't, tears, the whole
yeah,
thing. And
yeah,
now,
yeah.
6 years later, I'm up to 1 minute. So it took
Yay,
a
that's
long time.
huge. But
Yeah.
that's huge.
But it took a really long time to get
Yeah,
there. And
yeah.
when everyone kept telling me over and over again to meditate, I was like, I really want to get there. I
Hmm.
just don't know how right now. And
Right.
when I was able to admit that to myself, that it's like
Hmm.
right now, I don't know
Yeah,
how, my brain is not ready for it,
yeah.
that shifted everything for me because it was no
Mhm.
longer something that's not possible, something that will never happen, something that is a great tool for so many people that I'm just
Mhm.
not good enough for. It was something
Right.
that was my situation right now where I'm at, got to figure it out in this moment. And maybe
Mhm.
one day I can try again because the coping skills that worked 6 years ago, some
Right.
don't work anymore. Some
Right.
have been developed further, and some are
Yep.
still great go-tos, like having
Yep.
a
Yep.
dance party.
Yes, I'm so with you on the dance party. I try to do that every day. I think I wish that we talked more about I think this is one of the ways in which like the field is a little bit broken because I wish we talked more about a toolbox mentality. What if our goal as people who work one-on-one with folks was to give people as many tools as they could have and then teach them how to use them and at what moment to deploy them, right? Like that would be so much better than saying, okay, I've got this one tool, I can do EMDR, and if EMDR doesn't work on you, I guess there's something wrong with you, which is all too often like the message that patients get, because not every intervention is going to work with every individual at every moment. And as you said, like there are some tools that are going to be super critical in some moments of your life that then sort of fade away and don't really have any efficacy, and others that you couldn't even think about that you're totally able to tap into 5 years later. Like we are constantly becoming. And so that's, I think, something else we need to take into account.
Exactly. And it leads, at least for me and a lot of people I know, it leads to this idea of, well, therapy doesn't work for me.
Right, exactly.
And that's very difficult because it's like with your mental health, you're supposed to go to therapy and feel
Yeah.
better, and then it's not
Right.
happening. Or this idea that I'm going to feel better in one session. I just had this
Yep.
conversation 2 days ago with my friend's boyfriend. He's like, well, I
Mhm.
tried 2 sessions and feel better. And I was like, your therapist is just getting to know you and getting your background
Right.
info. If you feel like it's a good option for you to explore therapy, I highly recommend giving it a couple of months to see if you start to feel any changes or learn any new tools, finding that
Yep.
therapist that you feel connected to. These
Yep.
conversations aren't being held enough. So a lot of people just think this doesn't work, or they find a modality that's really just not right for them and they think
Mhm.
this is it.
Yep. This is all we do in therapy. Yeah, totally. I really think we need to sort of like lift the veil on the field and what it means to be trained and what people learn and the messages we get told, and like how therapy works, what to look for in a therapist, how to know if it's a good fit, because all of the research since like the 70s shows that it's not actually the intervention that determines the success or failure of therapy. It's the quality of the therapeutic relationship. And so if we think about it in that way, it's a totally different kind of mode than thinking like, okay, I did 2 sessions, nothing changed. Where's my quick fix, which we are just societally taught to look for, the silver bullet, the quick fix, the like, well, I'm not getting any change here. Well, okay, what if we looked at this as like you're building a therapeutic relationship? Like, do you want to keep building that therapeutic relationship with that person? You can ask yourself that at every session, right? But like, that's a very different question than like, well, I'm not getting any better immediately. And so this whole thing doesn't work?
Yeah, exactly. That therapeutic relationship is so powerful. It's
Yeah.
what also keeps you coming back. And
Yeah,
I
totally.
have this one client who the relationship we were able to build so well that even when traveling for the summer to like another country, she's like, but can I still see you? Like,
Mm-hmm.
can we just do virtual? Because I don't want to miss a week. And I was like,
Right.
wow, I love that.
That's amazing.
Building that
Yep.
relationship where you're excited to go and to learn these new tools and you feel comfortable walking in and saying, this is something I want to talk about today,
Right.
really makes all the difference. And if we can
Mhm.
learn that it's not that matters. And it might not be the right therapist for us if we're never able
Right.
to build it, but to give it a chance.
Mhm.
Because just like
Right.
in friendships and relationships, sometimes it
Yeah.
takes a little bit of time to really build that connection where you feel safe to talk about everything and to trust them when they
Yeah.
lead you somewhere that may be outside your comfort zone for a minute, but leads to more
Yeah.
growth.
Yep, totally. I think it's one of those spaces where we tend in our society to look at things in transactional terms. And I think this is one of the places where it's really harmful, because that can sort of like dampen the effect of the relationship. If I come to you as you're my therapist, right? And I'm like, well, I didn't get anything this session, or this session didn't change me, then I'm missing the fact that we are building a relationship that by itself could change my life. Like, not necessarily the tools that are employed, those are, of course, obviously important, but like the relationship and the goodwill that a therapist can show you um, can change your life just all on its own?
Exactly. And knowing that if it's not working for you right now and you're still kind of shopping around for that therapist that's right for you, modality, whatever it is, there's
Hmm.
also tools that you can explore on your own. That was a big
Hmm.
thing for me was when I
Yeah.
didn't have that support yet, I was
Hmm.
starting to create resources for myself. One thing that I
Hmm.
have is a little coping tool jar because sometimes I can't call
Yes.
my therapist in a breakdown, right?
Yep.
So I have a coping tool jar. It's like color coded, so based on the level of how I'm
Oh, I
feeling,
love that.
just pull something out. And it's made all the difference because sometimes my brain can't remember. Sometimes
Yes.
I
Yep.
can't get in contact with someone else, and I need to have these tools. So finding how I can also integrate my own support into my life
Mm-hmm.
makes such a difference as well.
Yeah, I love that so much because I think, and this is another place where like psychoeducation goes a long way as well, right? Like if we can teach people why they feel a certain way at a certain moment and how it is valid biologically, I think we can take away a lot of the stigma. And the truth is that when you are flooded with anxiety or because of a trauma trigger or with panic, you do not have access to the part of your brain that holds the list of coping tools.
Yeah.
And so I think so often, I'm sure you see this, I see this with clients all the time. They'll say, they'll come in with all this shame and say, like, I had a moment or I had an episode and I didn't remember any of my coping tools and I acted in a way that I wish I hadn't. And it's like, well, okay, we can think about how to change that behavior and what the ripple effect of that, what that behavior is. But I think we also need to understand that, like, when you're in those moments of being flooded, like, of course you couldn't remember your coping tools. That doesn't mean you're not healing. It means you were flooded. And neurobiologically, that means you don't have access to these things. And that is really critically important.
Exactly. And that was one thing that I started to explore with my clients I really enjoyed was I may have been a little annoying with it, but creating an emotional wellness toolbox. And it was
Yes.
like places I can go, people I can talk to,
Yeah.
validation statements, self-love
Yeah.
activities, affirmations,
Yeah.
all these things. But I made them write it down on a sheet of paper, fold it up, put it in like if they carried a purse, and a purse they carried a backpack more so whatever it
Right.
was,
Yeah.
or
Wallet.
tape it on their wall, like whatever
Yeah.
they needed to, and then type it in their phone as well in their notes app
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
take
I
a
love
picture
it.
of it. So it's like
Yeah.
have it in so many different spaces so it's accessible to you
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
there are going to be moments where you don't know.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It doesn't mean anything's wrong with you. It doesn't mean
Right.
that you're not trying, that you're not learning, that you're failing at therapy or at life. Like, it's just
Hmm.
that sometimes our brains feel difficult. And it's a tool that
Hmm.
I found useful. So let's try it together and see if that becomes
Yeah.
what's useful for you. And
Yeah.
it has made all the difference. And validating that, like, even
Hmm.
as a therapist, sometimes I need help by having this piece of paper in front of me. So it's not wrong to have it.
Right. 100%. Yeah. We're all in the same boat in that way because that's just how our biology works. And I think like if you're hesitant, if you're listening to this and you're hesitant, try to come up with a list of people you can call right now when you're feeling okay, and then try to come up with that list when you're spiraling, because you have a number of people that you can call that will not be accessible to you when you're spiraling. You won't remember, and your brain will keep telling you you're alone. You don't have anybody to call. And that's a trick. Like your brain is tricking you in that moment. And if you can give it these three ways to see otherwise, that's really critically important.
That is so true. I'm gonna make sure I have that written down more because it does
Yeah.
feel like I'm so alone in this. No
Yep.
one's gonna understand, no one's gonna answer anyways. It's like my brain just telling me these stories over and over again. And if we can create these reminders when we don't need them yet, these tools are then accessible to us. So in those moments, we have it.
Hmm. Hmm. And we don't have to stigmatize ourselves or feel shame. We're just like, oh, this is one of those moments. I'm forgetting all the things. Let me pick up this piece of paper. Or let me look at my phone app and, or my notes app and be like, okay, wait, I do actually have friends. Okay, I could call three people. Maybe I don't need to right now, but I'm not alone.
Yeah. And it's
Hmm.
so, at least it feels so funny to me a lot of times. I'm like, I have no friends. I'm all alone.
Right, right,
And
right.
I was saying this to one of my friends, and she's
Yeah,
Francesca,
I
breathe.
know.
And
Right.
I was like, my birthday is coming up. And I was like, I'm not going to celebrate it. Like, I don't have anyone to celebrate it with. And she was like, Francesca, I'm celebrating with you. And then another friend texted me, was like, what are we doing for your birthday? And I was like, oh, I
Mm.
guess I do have people to celebrate with.
Right,
And
right.
I have to stop listening to that loud voice in my brain all the time, or just becoming aware, like, no, this is the voice
Yeah,
that's telling me this. It's not the fact.
yeah,
And being able to
yeah,
separate
yeah.
helps a lot.
Yeah. And those voices, I think like that's so important. This is so when I was writing the Joy Reset, I think the subtitle is like, hold on. 6 ways trauma steals happiness and how to win it back. And I developed when I was writing the book, these things that I called the joy thieves. And there's 6 of them. And the 6 joy thieves are these voices in your head that are telling you you're alone, or you have to stay hypervigilant, or you should be afraid of anything good happening, or that you don't deserve anything good, or you should feel guilty. And I think when we don't recognize that we have those voices, we are powerless to them. But if we can just get a little bit of awareness of like, wait, okay, my brain is telling me a story. Let me check if it's true, right? Or what is it based in? Is it based in fear and my brain's attempt to keep me small and safe? Or is it reality, outside of me?
Yes, exactly. It does feel so powerless when we don't recognize
Yeah.
it, when it's the only voice in our heads. And a lot
Yeah.
of times it doesn't even come from us. That was a big thing for
Yeah.
me too, is where did I get this message from? And sometimes it was from other people. Sometimes it
Mhm.
was from just my brain having some fun with itself. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's from the media, whether it was social
Yep.
media or TV, movies, whatever it was. It can
Yep.
come from so many different places. And if I can
Hmm.
separate out where it's coming from, then I can understand this really isn't a fact. And it's okay that
Yep.
this voice is there. It's a normal thing, but it doesn't have to control my life.
Hmm. Yep, totally. And that awareness, I think sometimes we go to like, well, what do I do with it? What do I do with it? I think the awareness means you've already come a really far way because you institute so much space between you and the voice when you recognize that it exists, and when you learn to be like, wait a second, that's this thing. This is a shame story, or this is, my mother saying something, or this is, social media telling me I'm not good enough. Even just that creates the distance between the stimulus and the emotion that you're having. And that I think alone is really, really, really helpful.
Yes, exactly. And then it's in those moments where I have that awareness that I can
Hmm.
remember to find those pockets of joy, to find things that make me feel happy so that
Yeah.
this feeling is very real right now based on these thoughts, that I can create a little bit of happiness and joy so that it's not the
Yeah.
only feeling that exists.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And
Um,
that's merciful. Yeah.
MC, thank you so much for joining me today. As we're wrapping up, is there anything
Yeah.
you'd like to leave our audience with?
Oh, if you can take away one thing, it would be that practicing imprinting a tiny little joy every single day. So anything in your day, anything in your immediate environment that sparks joy, and imprinting that, you are starting a process of rewiring your brain towards resilience and away from stress and anxiety. So that's a very small thing we can all, I think, commit to even in hard times. Doesn't erase what's going on, but it does, as you say, like give you that little bit of a break.
Yeah, and it's such a simple yet powerful, actionable step that we all can take.
Mhm.
Um, and how can people learn more about you, get your books, connect?
Yeah. So I'm actually doing this tiny little joys practice every single day of 2025 on Instagram and TikTok, and my handle is the same on both. It's mc.phd, and the community of people in there who's all doing it together is amazing. So join us at whatever time of the year this is because it's fun. And then you can buy the books, Unbroken and The Joy Reset, anywhere you buy books, your favorite indie store or a big conglomerate, whichever you prefer. And my website is alchemycoaching.life.
Thank you so much for listening to Normalize the Conversation. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. This podcast is an initiative of Inspiring My Generation, focusing on normalizing the conversation, bringing education and awareness to the forefront, and amplifying global voices to spark change and hope. Inspiring My Generation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization on a mission towards suicide prevention through awareness, conversation, education, and support. Connect with us on Instagram at Inspiring My Generation and visit our website inspiringmygeneration.org to learn more about our work and how you can make a difference.